believe it or not, that one song is now 1/4 of my publishing income. So this is a song called Dance, 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 Yowsah, Yowsah, Yowsah. This is the very first hit single that Chic ever produced. Not the first song we ever recorded, but the first song that ever made the radio and made the charts. I love this song. It was the beginning of my career. Lefreque. Wow. The great thing about Lefreque was we were invited to Studio 54 by Grace Jones herself. And somehow we couldn't give the right password to get in. So they didn't let us in to see Grace at the stage door. In fact, they slammed the door in our faces and said, "Aw, F off." And they did that twice. And I happened to live around the corner from the back door of Studio 54. And when we went home, we got 2 bottles of champagne, Dom Perignon, which we used to call rock and roll mouthwash. We downed those really quickly and we got buzzed. And we remembered this guy slamming the door going, "Aw, F off." So we wrote a song that went, "Aw, F off, don't F Studio 54, F off," which turned into "Aw, Freak Out," the biggest song in the history of Atlantic Records to this very day. So we always say, by not getting what we wanted, we got more than we could have ever imagined. Everybody Dance is the very first song that I ever wrote for Chic. Bernard had a day gig. Bernard Edwards was my partner and bass player. And I didn't have a day gig, but I did have a girlfriend who did. So when she left the apartment and went to work, I went to work and I wrote this song called Everybody Dance. Everybody Dance is really the official beginning of our careers because a good friend of ours who was the engineer was also a DJ. He took that record and he spun it successfully at his club for a few weeks, and Everybody Dance turned into an underground phenomenon. It was just the hottest thing in New York City, and Spike Lee captures it in his film called The Summer of Sam. I guess he was at the right age at the right time when that song came out. Good Times is probably one of the most important Chic songs to me. It came out in the summer of '79 where we actually had 2 #1 Billboard pop singles. Good Times was, I don't like to say it's the unofficial beginning of hip hop, but it had so much to do with the foundation of hip hop because I remember Debbie Harry and Chris Stein from Blondie taking me to what they called a hip hop. And there were a line of DJs, and the only music that was played for about 4 hours was the breakdown of Good Times. And this line of DJs all had rhymes that went to Good Times. And the next thing I know, Rapper's Delight came out a few weeks later as a single, which features many elements from Good Times. In fact, they actually sample our strings and put it on their record. We Are Family is, in a unique way, the most successful single song that the Chic organization has ever produced. When I wrote We Are Family, I got the concept of the song years before I met Bernard Edwards and years before I met Sister Sledge. I got the concept by going to Woodstock and seeing a group called the Children of God. The Children of God, believe it or not, you know, when you go back and you look at the original film of Jimi Hendrix playing Woodstock, you'll see a guy on stage playing congas. The conga player is a guy named Gerardo Velez, who wound up playing with Chic for many, many years. Well, his sister was the lead singer of the Children of God. I went really mainly to see the Children of God, and they had a song called Do What You Want to Do. And I thought that they had this little passageway, this chordal passageway in Do What You Want to Do that was so cool that I knew that one day I'd find the right song to to stick it in. And that right song, many, many years later, became We Are Family. And even when I play it for people from the Children of God, they go, I don't hear it. I go, what do you mean you don't hear it? It's like, because they put it in a completely different spot. But to me, this was the turnaround. Whereas in their song, it's part of just the regular lick. But yeah, We Are Family has now sort of dwarfed every song that I've ever written, even though Lefreque is by far the biggest selling single. We Are Family, because of its usages in other films and video games and things like that, is, believe it or not, that one song is now 1/4 of my publishing income. In a life of many, many groundbreaking moments, Like a Virgin is one of the biggest groundbreaking moments. The Like a Virgin single was big, but Like a Virgin album is the biggest selling album in the history of the life of Nile Rodgers and Madonna, by the way. Wild Boys, man, I have fond memories of the Wild Boys. At that point, I had already produced Duran's biggest selling single of all time, which was The Reflex. But one thing I noticed is that when we were doing the Wild Boys, or after The Reflex, I started to read the English press about Duran, and they sort of were getting a bad rap. They were like, these cute boy bands and blah, blah, blah. And I was like going, no, they're much more than that. They are deeply committed to their instruments. They want to get better as players. They want to get better at expressing themselves. So I used the Wild Boys as a single to show another element of Duran, another side of Duran. I wanted them to be thought of more like U2, like a more experimental type of band that just happened to come up with pop hits every now and then. And the Wild Boys gave me that opportunity. It was phenomenal the way that we constructed it and put it together. And I am super, super proud of the Wild Boys. And I wish that it were one of those singles that were as big as like a Virgin or We Are Family, because I think that it showed that Duran were not just cute boys that could just do Her Name is Rio and Girls on Film. That they could do something as avant-garde as the Wild Boys and still make it to the top of the pop charts. Wow. Let's Dance is probably the single biggest life shift in my career, because prior to doing Let's Dance, I had 5 failures in a row. And that was odd for me because my first album was a hit and every single record was a hit up until Diana Ross. I had never had any failures. Everything was a hit. So to now have Diana Ross, do the biggest album of Diana Ross's life, and then now after that, I can't get arrested until I meet David Bowie in 1982, some 2 years later. And he's down in the dumps because he's dropped from his label. I'm down in the dumps because I know that I'm about to get dropped from my label. And it was just he and I against the world. And that feeling of we can rescue each other was so important to me. Now, maybe he might not have felt like that, but I certainly did, because I had fewer lanes open to me than David did. So I knew that Let's Dance had to be a success, even though when I started out, I didn't want it to be a success. I thought a failure with David Bowie would give me more credibility than a hit record with Diana Ross, simply because it was a big, white, iconic rock and roll artist. And up until then, I had only done mainly R&B artists, and the only white artists that I did at that time were very pop, like Madonna and and Duran. In Excess was a little bit more avant-garde, But Bowie was, I call him the Picasso of rock and roll, much to his chagrin. He hated me saying that, but that's how I used to see him. But it really changed my life's pattern. And what's funny is that after I did Let's Dance, so I had nothing but flops before that for, a period of 5 records. After Let's Dance, I had nothing but hits. Get Lucky was really awesome because right where I'm sitting talking to you now, I was sitting talking to Guimon and Thomas. They had come over to my apartment and they wanted to play some demos for me. So I'm sitting here at my dinner table, and before they could play anything, they explained the concept of the album to me. Daft Punk visually and what they represented musically was incredibly futuristic. And they said to me, and these were almost the exact words, as a matter of fact, this is verbatim. They said that, Nile, we want to do an album as if the internet never existed. And I went, whoa, really? I said, they said, yeah. I said, don't even play those demos for me. I'll meet you at the studio. I didn't even need to hear anything. I was like going, nah, I don't need to hear records before I play them. Just when it's time to go, let's go. So I'm the only composer that's got 3 songs on that album. And I did all 3 of my songs in less than a couple of hours. When I got down to Electric Lady, which is where Chic recorded our first single, Dance, 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 Yowsah, 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 I said to Thomas, I said, you realize that you're standing in the exact same spot Bernard was standing in when we cut Yowsah, Yowsah. And he went, what are you talking about? You guys did all your records at the power station. I said, no. We did all of our albums at the power station, but our first record deal was a singles deal. So we only wrote 2 songs. And one of them was Dance, 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 and the other one was São Paulo. Bernard was standing right there when we played Dance, Dance, Dance. Thomas said to me, wow, how did you make Chic records? I said, well, let me show you. All of that music that you're playing for me, turn everything off but the drums and let me play. Yeah, I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross was so special with the way that that entire album was composed. But that song in particular, one night I had gone to a trans club and I was in the bathroom and there were all these guys getting dressed up like Diana Ross. And I thought, wow, this is bizarre. I never saw anything like this before. And this was early in my career, so I couldn't even get excited and say, guys, you won't believe this. I'm doing Diana Ross's album. This is so cool. And you dressed up like Diana Ross. It's amazing. So I just said nothing. I just looked at this sort of spectacle developing around me. And I knew in those days I was a heavy partier and drinker. So I called up my partner, Bernard Edwards, and I said, look, man, you just got to do me a huge favor. I just need you to write this down for me, because I guarantee you I'm going to get drunk tonight and forget it. And he was dead asleep. He says, okay, man, what you want? What you want? I said, wake the hell up and write down, I'm coming out. Okay, why? I don't understand. What do you mean, I'm coming out? I'm coming out of what? I said, no, just write down, I'm coming out. And he forced me to explain the scenario. I said, dude, I'm like in a Fellini movie right now. I'm in the bathroom and there's a bunch of Diana Ross impersonators on either side of me, at least 4 to 6 deep. It's the most incredible thing. And we are now doing Diana Ross's album. And if we do a song called I'm Coming Out, which would show how the gay community feels about Diana Ross, it would be like James Brown singing Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. And he woke up and said, I get it. And the next day he came to the studio and we composed I'm Coming Out.